Total chaos. That's the phrase that keeps hanging over the WNBA right now. Because as the league moves toward one of the most anticipated opening nights in its 30-year history, two very different stories are unfolding at the same time. If you only follow official statements and carefully managed messaging, the picture looks almost perfect. Revenue appears to be climbing, mainstream attention is growing, and everything seems to suggest a smooth, exciting rise. But once you look beyond that polished surface and pay attention to the people actually driving the momentum, the millions of fans buying tickets, filling arenas, fueling ratings, and investing emotionally in what happens on the floor, a far more complicated reality starts to emerge. There is energy, yes, but there is also tension, and that tension is becoming harder to ignore. Across social platforms, comment sections, and even ticket conversations, fans are becoming louder, more organized, and much more direct about what they expect from the league. The honeymoon period, where growth alone was enough to satisfy people, feels like it is fading. The audience is larger now, more invested, and far more demanding, and that changes everything. People are no longer simply grateful the league exists. They want professionalism, transparency, player protection, smarter roster construction, and leadership that feels connected to what they are seeing in real time. That's what makes this moment feel so important. The WNBA is standing inside one of the biggest commercial opportunities it has ever had, but with that opportunity comes a different level of scrutiny, and fans are making it clear that attention alone won't carry the sport forward. The expectations are higher now, the stakes feel larger, and every decision is being watched more closely than ever. That's really where the tension lives, not in whether the league is growing, because it clearly is, but in whether leadership can keep pace with the speed, pressure, and demands that growth has created. And that is the story surrounding opening night. Not a league in collapse, but a league entering a defining moment, with a fan base that has discovered its voice and no longer plans to stay quiet.
There's an overhead shot of this game, and you can already see there were a ton of empty seats in this place. A ton. And my goodness, this overhead shot, literally, the account that put this out, tons of empty seats, and this was pre-halftime. Correct. There was about 5 minutes left before the half when this shot.
The first demand driving so much of this frustration starts with something fundamental, player safety, and with the growing anger around how inconsistently games in the WNBA are being officiated. From the perspective of many fans, the league has been handed something rare in Caitlin Clark, a player whose style, visibility, and offensive creativity have brought enormous attention to the sport. That's why every hard bump, every off-ball grab, every sequence where contact goes uncalled ends up carrying more weight. Supporters aren't reacting only to individual plays. They're reacting to the fear that repeated physical punishment, if not managed consistently, can eventually become something bigger. What many of them are asking for is not special treatment, but clear standards. If new rules are meant to reduce holding, grabbing, and off-ball contact, then the expectation is that those rules are enforced the same way every night. That's why comments from Candace Parker have resonated so strongly. When she said Clark should be protected and officiated in a way similar to Stephen Curry, the point wasn't about celebrity. It was about protecting skill, pace, and the kind of play that helps the league grow. For many fans, the message is simple. Call the game clearly, protect the players, and make sure the biggest stars can actually stay on the floor. But the tension doesn't stop with officiating. The second major frustration lands directly on front offices and general managers, because many supporters feel roster construction has not kept pace with the level of talent entering the league. The current conversation around the Indiana Fever captures that perfectly. Fans look at a roster built around Clark and Aaliyah Boston and see a foundation with enormous promise. What they also see, though, are questions about depth, two-way wing support, and reliable secondary ball handling. Those concerns became louder after the loss to the Dallas Wings, when the bench struggled badly and the game swung sharply once Clark went to the sideline. Kelsey Mitchell has faced scrutiny for inconsistency, and suddenly the bigger concern becomes harder to ignore. What happens when the superstar rests, gets trapped, or simply can't carry every possession? That's where many fans are demanding accountability. They want front offices to think more aggressively about modern roster balance, pace and space fit, and the kind of depth that can keep a game stable for even a few minutes when the centerpiece isn't on the floor.
At its core, that frustration isn't really about one night or one box score. It's about professional standards. If a team can't protect a lead for a short stretch while its best player rests, people naturally start asking harder questions about how the roster was built in the first place. And that, more than anything, is what this moment seems to be exposing. A fan base asking for clearer officiating, stronger roster construction, and the kind of professional competence that matches the scale of attention now surrounding the league.
Losing the announcers, the clarity was real good. So there's that. Crisp picture, just no audio outside of the 2,000 fans that were screaming. Wow. I gotta tell you, guys, I think this season is going to surprise a lot of people, and maybe not in such a great way at all.
And that leads to what may be the most financially dangerous part of this entire storm, because something important has changed, and the league can feel it now. Fans are beginning to recognize their own economic power, and for the first time, they're using it. For more than 2 decades, the WNBA relied heavily on a loyal core of supporters who bought tickets because they believed in women's basketball, because supporting the league mattered, even when the product on the court wasn't always perfect. But that era is shifting. The new wave of attention, the millions of people pulled in by Caitlin Clark, operates differently. They are not showing up out of obligation. They are showing up for entertainment, for quality, for something that feels worth their time and money. And when modern audiences see a flawed product, questionable officiating, shaky coaching decisions, thin roster depth, they don't write long letters or wait patiently for explanations. They make a much simpler decision. They close their wallets. That reality became impossible to ignore during the preseason finale against the Nigeria women's national basketball team. The Indiana Fever, a franchise that led the league in attendance last season, dropped ticket prices all the way down to $12 just to fill the building. $12, less than a movie ticket. And even at that price, there were still visible empty sections sitting high above the floor. That doesn't automatically tell one story, but it did send a message. Fans are becoming more selective, more intentional, and far more aware of the value of what they're paying for. If opening night tickets are pushing toward $97, then people expect a full 40 minutes of basketball that feels worthy of that price. If a front office believes the presence of Clark alone guarantees that fans will overlook roster issues, uneven execution, or a disorganized product, that may be a serious misread of where the audience is now. Those empty seats felt less like a random preseason detail and more like an early warning. Patience is not unlimited. And what has made the tension sharper is that many fans don't feel fully heard. After that blowout loss to the Dallas Wings, concerns about depth and roster construction rose quickly, but instead of a direct acknowledgement of those questions, the response that followed felt corporate, polished, and disconnected from the urgency people were feeling. That's why the reaction hit so hard. Fans weren't asking for artificial excitement. They were asking for honesty. They wanted a front office willing to stand in front of a microphone after a difficult night and admit that improvements may be needed. That's the difference. Corporate language, careful press conferences, and glossy promotional posts don't calm tension when the audience feels like it has already seen the truth on the court. In moments like this, they can make the frustration burn hotter. And the pressure doesn't stop with one franchise. It climbs all the way to league leadership, where a growing number of fans and players are asking bigger questions about direction, communication, and trust. Kathy Engelbert has become part of that conversation, with scrutiny building around public comments, labor tensions, and the broader sense that the league is balancing rapid growth with equally intense expectations from the players who carry it. During the last WNBA Finals, that tension was visible in the arenas. Players like Nafisa Collier have spoken openly about leadership concerns, labor negotiations have grown increasingly difficult, and through all of it, the league has continued highlighting financial growth, while many of the athletes competing every night keep asking for deeper structural answers. That is where the real pressure now lives, not only in attendance, not only in ratings, but in whether the people guiding the sport can keep pace with how fast expectations are rising.
Couple things pretty evident tonight, I would say, during this game. Lack of depth, and clearly, look, before everybody starts saying, oh, but that was right before halftime, blah, blah, blah. Listen, I know some of you are going to try to support this. That's great. But, I'm supporting the team and trying to, but That doesn't mean fans aren't right. That doesn't mean fans aren't.
The clock is moving, and now the pressure feels real. Opening night is only days away, and for the WNBA, this is one of those moments that will be watched far beyond the usual basketball audience. The national spotlight is coming. New viewers will be paying attention, and first impressions are going to matter. If the league steps onto that floor and the same concerns from the past few weeks keep showing up, questions about player protection, roster depth, execution, and overall game flow, the reaction could stretch beyond one rough night. If Caitlin Clark keeps taking heavy contact without consistent whistles, if the Indiana Fever bench struggles to hold the line, or if the atmosphere doesn't match the scale of the attention, then frustration could harden into something more difficult to recover from. Right now, a lot of fans are still engaged because they care enough to demand change. But when disappointment lingers too long, energy can fade, and once casual viewers drift away, bringing them back becomes much harder. That's why this opening matters so much. The league has a chance to show millions of new viewers what it wants to be: a professional, compelling, and competitive product that respects both the athletes and the audience investing time and money into it. Fans have been clear about what they want: protect the stars, build stronger rosters, communicate honestly, and make decisions that match the scale of the moment, rather than relying on polished messaging. Now the next move belongs to the league. Opening night won't answer every question, but it will set the tone, and with the spotlight this bright, every decision from here will carry weight.